So hi everyone, welcome back to another Trident Talks, the Black Hat Spotlight series. Today I'm here with Tom Kelly, the co-founder of RealTime Cyber. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So obviously Black Hat days away now, just around the corner. We'll get into that, but before we do, can you just tell me a little bit about RealTime Cyber, the product, the solution, and your guys' journey so far?
Yeah, so we are a bootstrapped pen testing company. Um, Really what we focus on, where we stand out, is in the application security space. And I think, so right now we're still in an early iteration, but where I think there's a lot of room for improvement in application pen testing and maybe application security more broadly, um, is around some of the inefficiencies in it. If you look at like most pen tests, application security pen tests in a lot of ways are still some of those old school pen tests where it's just really a snapshot in time. While we've seen the network pen test side of things really move towards that autonomous and continuous pen testing. And so right now we're in early iteration, so we still are doing some of those manual techniques with the plan of improving and starting to build some automations and make it more continuous. And I think you really do add a lot of value every time you discover a vulnerability and disclose it, whether it's in some of the security research we do or in a pen test engagement. You are improving security quite a bit.
Awesome. And you've been established since 2021, right? Um, just starting sort of the year after COVID, the year when everything kind of got back to normal, so to speak. What's the journey been like for you guys since then? What sort of growth have you had, and what have you guys been up to in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if as an entrepreneur you can ever say there's a normal, the
It's
journey
true.
from one place to another. But first year, I mean, it's a lot of failure, a lot of figuring out where you fit in the marketplace. Um, a lot of those, it really is a lot of trial and error. I know probably most entrepreneurs will tell you that. Um, and then slowly we started figuring out kind of one, where we fit in the marketplace, and really where there is a lot of value to be added in pen testing when it comes to application security. And one thing that we've had a lot of luck in and a lot of success is really with our security research. So outside of the pen testing, we do a lot of research on different applications, and we can find vulnerabilities and usually kind of enumerate those across the internet and then disclose those to companies and kind of establish some goodwill in that sense.
Awesome. That's always in high demand, right? And it adds an extra layer of offering to you guys, and just this sort of, just the pen testing, right? I mean, pen testing's it's massive business again. It was something that was obviously kind of reduced in a big way, but we've seen so many firms coming through with build apps, a lot of new product launched in that area as well. It seems to be cool again, right? So it seems to be in demand again. Have you guys kind of felt that upkick and sort of increase in need lately?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the need is really driven from a couple different areas. I think the first one, and probably the most steady, is compliance. Well, it's like a bank, hospital,
Yeah.
group like that, where they're doing it to demonstrate compliance. And I think where you see the big uptick recently is with applications and SaaS development really has, I think, recovered from the lows it had a few years ago. And that drives a lot of demand just because, one, there's constantly new things being developed that the security needs to be validated. And unfortunately, a lot of times when companies start developing, they're not always thinking about security. That sometimes is an afterthought. And so being able to come in there and find some of those critical vulnerabilities and fix them before the product is shipped at scale can really improve security just overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when the speed and the emphasis is on grow, right? It's important to
Mhm.
be able to unearth that potentially catastrophic before it comes around, right? So yeah, no, that's interesting. And what's the future for you guys? Like, what does sort of growth plans look like for you? What's the sort of the trajectory and path you guys are on?
Yeah, so this year we've been taking on a lot of customers and still doing more of a traditional engagement with pen testing, kind of an old school approach, because I think that's a lot of times the first iteration is what can you improve without, building a huge product, um, or even an MVP. And then in the next coming years, what we plan to start doing is building some automations around application pen testing, which I think the major hurdle you're going to see there, and why you probably haven't seen quite as much of that as compared to, say, the network and infrastructure pen testing, is that there's a lot of variability within applications, whether it's written in one different language, within one sort of framework or another. And so I think that will be a hurdle compared to, say, like compared to, say, network or infrastructure pen testing, where you can use those scanners and kind of ingest that data. But there is some of that potential still in application pen testing as well. I think it's just a lot more complex.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see a real need for an increase in some of the more exotic testing types? So critical infrastructure, the sort of SCADA systems type work. Do you see that being more and more in demand? Do you see that kind of being a big emphasis with the geopolitical landscape right now and all the sort of threats that opens?
Yeah, so I guess there's two parts to that question. One is that we don't do a ton of critical infrastructure outside of some of the application components that may fall not just unique to critical infrastructure. I know that there is a lot of that's in government. I know DARPA does some security research around the Department of Energy, or say in coordination with the Department of Energy, looking to find some of those vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. But where I think there is a massive attack surface being developed right now, which you're starting to hear a little bit about it with OWASP releasing the OWASP LLM top 10, is really around AI. There's a ton of vulnerabilities that are unique to AI, and I think everyone's kind of just figuring it out right now, which is probably also the case for the attackers. The bad guys are figuring out right now, so it's kind of a race to who can figure it out first.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's a lot of novel vulnerabilities that you're seeing within AI, like prompt injection, which obviously we've seen injection in the past, like SQL injections and other injections like that. But prompt injection really doesn't take the level of technical skill that some of those exploits we've seen in the past are. Even some of the data poisoning. While there are clear ways to prevent some of that, I think it's something that is still very new, and we don't totally have figured out how to prevent those from our proactive side.
Yeah, it's just going to build on that as well, right? That it's going to be so much more weaponizing of AI and like you said, being ahead of it first. Like who can get in front of the other, right? Just another arms race, but this time powered by AI and what that can bring together. So
And one
obviously,
thing,
go on.
yeah, one thing I want to say about that, I think you're also seeing some of those traditional application security vulnerabilities kind of becoming new again with AI. Like, for example, we've seen a lot of different prompt injection techniques. I know Microsoft has done a ton of research on this, involving really just, like, for example, engineering a prompt within a prompt to try to get around the guardrails, whether you're putting that into a file to upload to analyze, or maybe that file has a malicious URL that it calls to, or it's malicious itself. And so you're seeing a lot of that attack surface where traditionally those are traditional application security vulnerabilities that are kind of being exploited in new ways through AI.
Almost like a resurfacing of stuff that wasn't, for lack of a better word, that dangerous, but is now because of the way it's being changed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you're seeing, like, even I was talking to the CISO of Arizona, state of Arizona. We have our own podcast too. And he was talking a little bit about they're starting to see a lot of LLMs being used for phishing. And so some of the typical red flags, like grammatical errors, or maybe they'll tell that the person writing the email wasn't English wasn't their first language. That's all completely gone now, to where they're one becoming a lot better. And you're probably going to start soon seeing um, information from data breaches being ingested by some of these LLMs to write even better social engineering and spear phishing emails.
So yeah, crazy, right? When you think about how it all comes together is it's absolutely insane. So obviously we got Black Hat coming up on Monday. Have you done Black Hat a few times before?
Yeah, so last year was my first.
Awesome.
I also typically go to RSA as well. It's kind of the other big one. I mean, it's just great the amount of people that you meet. Kind of a humbling experience going to those. Meet a lot of smart people from a lot of different backgrounds, and yeah,
I saw a statistic the other day posted on LinkedIn that said that this year 8% of the whole cyber industry will be represented at Black Hat in some way. When you think of that scale, it's just incredible, isn't it? It's just certainly the place to be. So how can people find you there? How can people interact with you there? And what's the plan with real time cyber at Black Hat? What have you guys got in store?
yeah. So we're definitely bouncing around some of the events. Well, you can find us at your event. Um,
Yeah.
Not to give you a shameless plug there. Um, we might also, be in Vegas. Might also hit the golf course once or twice. So some people who
I'd be rude not
like
to, right?
golf.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, and if you want to meet up, we can certainly schedule something.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks ever so much for being a guest today, Tom. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week in the desert.